So this is the last part of conditionals, and I'm going to explain in this video about the third conditional, the third and last conditional. So let's start. So the third conditional is already, it describes an unreal or imagined situation or event in the past. So not only is it not possible in the present? It's something that will not happen in the present and does not happen in the present. It's also something that did not happen in the past. Okay? That's why we often call it the regret conditional. Okay? Because we use it to express regret about things we wanted to do or thought we should have done differently, but we didn't. Okay? Something happened and we cannot change it because it's in the past. So let's look at a few examples to understand it a little better. Okay, before we do, we use the past perfect form. Okay, if in conditional 2, we use past simple and then would or might or could. This time we use the past perfect tense. And in the result clause, we will use modals perfect, okay? Wouldn't have or would have, might have, or could or couldn't have. Modals perfect, okay? See the have, and here we have had plus V3. So we're using perfects for the third conditional. Now let's look at a few things. If he had been looking where he was going, he wouldn't have walked into a wall. But he wasn't looking. Okay, so he wasn't looking. That was the situation, and he went into the wall. Okay, this situation has happened in the past, and we cannot change that. So if he had been looking, okay, past perfect progressive in this case, and wouldn't have walked, modals perfect. If I had had a camera with me, I would have taken some photographs, but I didn't have a camera, and that's why I couldn't take any photograph. Why do I have the verb had twice here? Okay, so the first one is because when we use past perfect, we always use the auxiliary verb Paul Ezer have in the past, which is had. So if he had been, if I had had, okay, had known, had been, etc. So the first had is there because this is past perfect. The second had is there because the main verb, okay, in this clause is the verb have. Okay, I have a camera with me. And when I put the main verb have in V3, I get had. So if I had had a camera with me, most people would just say it if I'd had a camera with me because that sounds a little better than saying had twice. But this is correct, okay? So if I'd had a camera with me, I would have taken some photographs. Let's look at the next example. This time, the order of the if clause and the result clause have uh, um, switched. So we are starting with a result clause. It might have been easier to break the news if I had known her better. And the last but not least, if you had been driving more slowly, you could have stopped in time. But you didn't drive more slowly, and therefore you did not stop in time. So now at this point of this presentation, I have added a short clip it's an excerpt from the film Benjamin Button. Okay. There's a scene described here, and then at the end of it, there's great use of the third conditional. It starts at 2 minutes and 22 seconds until the end of the video. So what I would ask you to do is this. Watch the film, okay? Watch this short clip. Watch, especially pay attention to the last part between 2:22 seconds and the end, and watch it again and again so that you understand the meaning of it. When we get to practice in class, those of you who decide to join us, we will go over this in a little more depth and understand exactly how it's used in this scene. So let's review for a second the entire um, table of all the conditionals. Let's talk about likelihood, okay? Because here you can compare the if clause and the result clause in terms of tenses. באיזה זמנים אנחנו משתמשים on your own. So, but let's talk about the differences in likelihood, סבירות, that something will happen. So the zero conditional talks about things that are possible in the present. The first conditional talks about things that are possible in the future. Okay, like there's a 80, 90% chance or 70% chance, quite likely that it will happen. Not sure, but quite likely. The second conditional is already impossible in the present. It's possible, but not very likely in the future. And when we talk about the third conditional, it's completely already impossible in the past. So that's the major difference between the different conditionals. So when you want to use a conditional sentence, you need to think about how likely is the condition. And based on the likelihood of the condition, that's how you choose which conditional you are going to use. Okay, so here again, you have examples from different songs, okay, from a specific song, okay. The class activity is something that, should you join us in the Zoom lesson, we will do the class activity together. Here, you have an individual activity for practicing only the third conditional. Moving on, the final practice will allow you to check if you understood the entire concept of conditionals, okay, not just the third conditional. You're going to have exercises and practice for mixed conditionals, where you will have to choose whether it's first, second, or third conditional. So let me just show you what you have here. Okay, so here you have another video with various conditionals in movie scenes. The practice activity, the first practice activity actually gives you the conditional, okay? It's easier. They tell you what conditional you should be using, and then you just make sure that you understood the technical aspect of which tense, באיזה זמן להשתמש in the if clause, and which tense you use in the result clause. Going back to the presentation, the second practice activity, okay, is slightly more challenging here. You are not told which conditional to use. You need to think about the likelihood. How likely is something to happen? Okay? And complete the sentence. Okay? You also have a hint. The tense that you use in the if clause should hint at which conditional you're actually looking to complete here. Okay? At the bottom, you will have the answer key. And that's it. Good luck.